friends, I'm Kyla and welcome back to the Infinite Library. Today is going to be a very short video just looking at my TBR for the month of April. April is Return to Orilium, the spring term, otherwise known as Magical Readathon. This is run by G at Books Roast. Announcement video down below if you're not sure what this is, but essentially it is a magical school that we go to in April and September, 2 terms, and at this magical school we are a character that takes a class essentially to a certain calling or job. So usually I take Elspeth, who is a D&D character of mine. She's a little pink tiefling, but I decided to have a break from her this year and I'm bringing somebody new. So I'm actually bringing Asterius. He is a character of mine who is a paladin Pegasus rider. He's an Eladrin, which basically means in D&D terms, his looks change with his mood. It's like seasonal. Usually he is in spring, however, which is this nice pink thing he's got going on. But I'm going to do him this year just because I want a break from Elspeth. She's going to take a gap year, I think, and we're going to have the much more laid back Asterius instead. So for Asterius, because he's good with animals, he is a Pegasus rider, I decided to go with the Beastmaster class for him, which gives me some interesting classes. So I'm going to go through the classes first of what I'm going to be reading to fit the prompts, and then we'll go over the other books I'm planning to read this month because there are still other books I'm going to read this month regardless. I always have my book club. I'm also going to be filming episode 3 of Treasure or Trash, which is going to be a little bit different from the previous 2 episodes. I know at the moment only episode 1 is out, link here, but episode 2 should be coming out sometime in early April. I'm in the middle of filming this at the moment. But for episode 3, one of my besties, Jules Gemhart, is coming over, so I'm going to have her pick my TBR for me for Treasure or Trash. I'm going to let her loose in my library and just tell her to pick books for me to read, and I've got to read them. So I don't have a clue what those books are going to be yet, but I'm looking forward to it. So for Magical Readathon then, Calling of Beastmaster, I have to take 5 classes, which is 5 different books, 5 different prompts. You can double them up, but I like to do them as separate books anyway. So for the first class, that is Elemental Studies, and I have to find a book with fruit on the cover, which is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I've got to say, I was like looking for a quick, easy read I could fit in because I had other books that were quite thick, and I was really struggling until I realised that because I get ALCs from Libro FM as a librarian, one of the ALCs that came out from last month was actually perfect. If you can count tomatoes as fruit, I know this is debatable, but we have here Thaumaturgic Tapas. It's a magical, cozy cooking fantasy, which sounds absolutely perfect. This is just a short novella, I believe, in an overarching series, but I don't think the series is very long anyway. I think they're kind of novellas. I don't honestly know a whole lot about it. I just know it's short, it's an audio book, and it sounds cute and cozy. And it's got tomatoes on the cover because tapas. So that is what I'm going to be reading for Elemental Studies. For Animal Studies then, I have to steal a book from another TBR. Technically, I'm stealing 2 books because I didn't read these last month. I fully intended to read both. I might do a reread of Iron Widow so I could then read Heavenly Tyrant. I did not get to them. March ended up being really busy in terms of books I was reading. Also, I had library books that were due back earlier than I wanted to, so I chose to prioritise those over the books I already own. Not great, but here we are. But desperate to get to these. So I'm stealing technically Heavenly Tyrant because that was the one I was supposed to have read last month, ideally, and my reread of Iron. Then for Alchemy, I have to read a book that has all capitals in the title, and I'm actually picking an arc for this, and it's an audiobook, which is good because I'm doing quite a bit of travelling in April, so audiobooks are really good for that. It is a historical, I want to say literary book called The Showwoman. It's circus. It's about an all-female group who kind of make their own circus, I believe, after they're kind of mistreated. And I just love the idea of it. Anything circusy sounds really fun to me. So as soon as I saw this, I requested it and got accepted. So yeah, I'll be reading that for the category of alchemy because as you can see from the title here, It's all capital letters. Next, for restoration, I have to read a book with a 4 or above, star average rating. This was quite easy. Technically, I could just go for Iron Widow as my pick because I have to read it anyway. But I also didn't get to The Rebel Witch last month, which is the sequel to The Crimson Moth, and I really wanted to, and this definitely has a 4 or above higher average rating at the moment. Anyway, maybe it drops, but I've heard good things about the sequel, I think. Honestly, I've not heard anything about the sequel, but I'm assuming it's going to be a high enough rating to fit this. But I really want to get to this as well, so that is what I'm putting in for my class of restoration. And then for the final class, which is law, I have to read a book which has a musical term in the title, which I thought was going to be really hard until I looked at my TBR trolley and realised I have the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Ballad. Music in the title. Done. Because, of course, me and half of the rest of the world have pre-ordered, and it has arrived, Sunrise and the Reaping. This is the new book by Suzanne Collins, author of The Hunger Games. This is a prequel telling Haymitch's story. I've heard decent things about this as well. I've not heard decent things about this, but even though I don't technically need to read this book before I read the new book, I want to just to see what the fuss is about. And I do enjoy all the other books in the Hunger Games series, even if I've heard that this is very much skippable, but I still want to give it a try. So that is all my magical readathon classes sorted. I also do have other books that I will be reading throughout the course of the month. I have another arc as well that I'm going to be reading. This is a very fun sounding horror that I know is going to be a Literally Dead book club pick for Kayla from Books and Lala in the future, and that's Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin. It is a horror about a florist, I think. This guy comes in, he like starts to flirt with her, but there is also a plant in the store that loves the florist and it gets jealous. It all sounds very Pet Shop of Horrors, which I've never seen. A good excuse for me to watch it finally. But it sounds really good as well. I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm just hoping for kind of it being fun and zany. I'm kind of hoping for like Bloom vibes, not gonna lie. Like weird cannibalistic lesbians. I don't know why in my head the plant is a lesbian, but the plant is a lesbian. But yes, I'll be reading that. That is another arc I've got reading this month. Obviously, my friend will be picking a bunch of books for me, but I have a couple other books that I also want to try and get to. Mainly, I want to finally start technically a reread of this one, but the Percy Jackson series. I only want to try and read the first book in the month of April. I might read more if I'm feeling up to it, but this is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. This is is it middle grade? Is it YA? I'm not really sure, but it's Rick Riordan. Most people know what the series is. It is about a teenager who discovers that he is the son of a Greek god, and he ends up going to a school where other children of Greek gods are. Essentially, I've read the first book and the third book in this series before. I've never read any more, and I really want to actually give this series a proper try. And I'm kind of in the mood for this kind of thing at the moment. So I'm going to be starting this series again. This should be a fairly easy reread, and I'm looking forward to it and seeing if I enjoy it. Because I remember it being a book that I liked, but I read them at weird times when I was busy, so I just never really committed to the whole series. But I have the whole series now, so there's really no excuse but to try and actually get back into the series. So that is my plan for April. And then the final book, I don't even know what it is yet because it's my book club book. I have 3 options for my book club. We haven't obviously had a meeting yet. Last month we read The Last Bookstore on Earth, which was a sci-fi sapphic dystopia, and we've read a lot of sci-fi recently, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. But we've been a little bit lacking on the fantasy front, so I've deliberately picked 3 fantasy books for this month. One of the books is also a reread for me, which is like a book I really, really loved, and I'm kind of terrified because my book group are very like critique heavy that they're gonna hate it, and it's one of my favourite books, so I'm gonna be very sad. The first option is The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Seals. This is a sapphic Regency era historical AU kind of thing where it's queer normative society, and it is about a witch. It's about a young girl, who goes to live with her grandmother, who is a honey witch, to be trained as a honey witch herself, except the only issue is that as a honey witch, they are cursed to never fall in love with anybody. And obviously there is a very hot girl with tattoos that sparks start to fly between them. I read this last year, I think. It was last year because it came out last year. And I really loved this. It was a 5-star. So I'm hoping my group might like it. I really don't know if it's going to be their kind of thing. I think they're going to think it's going to be a bit too slow and sappy, but I liked it. And the other 2 options are books I'm just really interested in. So we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've heard it's more of like a murder mystery fantasy kind of thing, which sounds really interesting. I know the sequel is also coming out soon, so really interested to check this one out. And the final book is Mortal Follies by Alexis J. Hall. I know this is sapphic. I know very little else about it. I think it's also historical. I think I've accidentally all picked historical fantasies for my book club. And honestly, it's the cover for me with this one. I think I definitely did read the synopsis and was like, this sounds interesting, but the cover has just drawn me in and I want to read it because of the cover. By the time I've edited this, I will have had book club, so I will actually know what book has won. It is this book. So I will also be reading, or rereading, I guess, if it's The Honey Witch, that in April. So that is it, really. It's not as big of a pile as I usually have, but I really do want to be focusing more on Treasure and Trash on my physical TBR, and I still have some arcs as well coming up that I may also try and get to during the month. We'll see. So that is it from me. Feel free to put a bird as an emoji in the comment if any of the books you've seen in this video are interesting to you, or ones that you are also reading in the month of April, because the bird is the one I'm the most worried about hating, to be honest. I think everything else I'm gonna have a good time with, but we'll see with this one. As always, stay safe, stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!